Hey everyone, Dumont Owen here. It is Wednesday at noon, and it's time for another episode of Build Your. No, it's another episode of our Wednesdays at noon, our Wednesday webinars. And today I'm going to be talking about what you know by now is my very favorite topic, and that is how to build a really, really powerful personal brand that attracts your ideal clients and converts, or attracts your ideal clients and converts, no, attracts high quality leads and converts them to clients. Okay, there we go. So, a couple of things with housekeeping before we get started. Above me, you're going to see a place where you can click and let StreamYard see your name. What this means is that if you have comments or questions, when you ask them, they will show up with your name so that I know who to respond to. Now, you don't have to do that. I will answer your comments and questions, even if you're anonymous. So, but if you would like me to get back to you specifically, let StreamYard know. Okay, and you only have to do this once. So it's not something that's going to be an onerous activity. Okay, secondly, I'm going to be sharing my screen in a few minutes, and when I'm sharing my screen on StreamYard, I am unable to see your questions and comments, so I will be stopping and looking for those. And if I don't answer your question or don't respond to your comment, that's because there can be a lag. So I will come back in, and if I don't see your comments and questions right away, I'll make sure that I answer them and send you a message that they're there. So with that said, let's get started. Okay, first I'm going to share my screen. This is always a scary thing on StreamYard, but I've been able to do it pretty successfully recently. So let's see what happens. Okay, share a screen. Okay, and let me get my slideshow started. Good. Except that it's not playing. Come on, slideshow, play. Okay. All right, what we're talking about today is how to build a big, bold, badass brand. You know, when I was a kid, my mother had me in every kind of class she could think of to, put me someplace where she could keep an eye on me and knew I wasn't going to get into trouble. And most often that turned out to be dance lessons. Now, if you're looking at me and saying she doesn't look like a dancer, you got it. I took ballet, I took tap, I took modern dance, and they always said the same, my instructors always said the same thing to me, because I was a small kid and I didn't want to seem, or I was small, but I was chunky. Okay. So I was a little embarrassed about how I would show up. And my instructors always said, take up space. Take up more space. You're not taking your space, meaning you are not stepping into the frame and being as big and as bold and as badass as you could possibly be. So that's what my message is to you today. Make your brand big and bold and badass so that it is absolutely irresistible to your ideal clients. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing I want to know is, how important is it to you that you be familiar with the brand before you buy? When you go to the stores, you have to get, that brand that your kids are clamoring for. I don't know what it would be these days. I know Frosted Flakes of some kind. Okay, some kind of frosted cereal. How important is it to you that you get that brand that they saw advertised? Or are you okay with a brand that you're not that familiar with? So let me know. Hit 1 if it's, not that important, 2 if it's somewhat important, and 3 if it's really, really important. So let's see what the poll says here. Okay, I'm watching. I think this is turning out exactly the way It always does. So that's why I'm putting this up here right now, because I have done this many, many times, and it has always turned up pretty similar to this proportion. 23% of whom say it's really important. You better not bring home that wrong brand of Cocoa Puffs or Frosted Flakes, because your kids are just going to say, hey, that stinks. We're not eating that. Some say it's somewhat important. So, and then others say it is very important. So if you'd better, if it's somewhat important, you can bring it home and the kids aren't going to complain too much. If it's not important, you can put anything in front of their face. And if it's very important, that means your kids are not going to buy it unless it is that brand. Okay, so let's look at how we build a personal brand. First, we're going to talk about what personal branding is. Then we're going to talk about how to build your brand in just 3 steps. And then finally, I'm going to give you an action plan that's going to make sure that you're not only communicating, or you don't only have a powerful brand, but you're communicating that. You're promoting your brand effectively on LinkedIn. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm sure there are still a few of you out there who have not met me yet, I'm Dumont Owen, and I'm a master personal brand and digital branding strategist. In addition to that, I have a PhD in education and an MS in human service, in counseling and human services. And what that means is I really, really value my clients, and I try and put them first in everything that I do. And that includes personal branding, because having come out of the career development area, in that counseling area, I know that the one thing that you can do that will most help you in your career or your business, in your progression, is having a really strong, powerful brand that's irresistible to your ideal clients or your ideal employers. So let's get started with building that brand. Okay, first of all, what is your personal brand? Well, and I'm saying what's your brand, but really we're talking about personal branding. So your personal brand is your unique promise of values. Your unique promise of value. And what that means, it's unique. In other words, it's different from all your peers. All of those people who operate in the same space you do. All the other people who are executive coaches just like you, or all the other people who are designers just like you. So your brand is what differentiates you from everybody else who offers the same services or operates in that same space. It's a promise because it is totally authentic. It's you. I mean, think about how hard it is to be somebody else, to always have to cover up your own brand and who you really are. That's tough. And then finally, it's a value to your target audience, to the people you want to know your brand. And when I say it's a value, that means it's relevant to the problems and challenges they're experiencing every day. Okay, so when you think about brands, who are the world's strongest brands? Well, we have an array of them here. And I would bet you that if I polled you, there would be, a variety of brands that you identify with. Some of you might be, Microsoft fans. You grew up on Microsoft. You know Windows and you're comfortable there, and that's your brand. Whereas others might be totally about Apple. You really buy into that Apple kind of pioneer, unstoppable creative image. So some of these brands are going to really resonate with you, and others are not. For me, I'm from Florida. Disney totally resonates with me. I was indoctrinated in Disney. So it's really important to think about why certain brands resonate with you. So let's think about this a little bit more. One of the world's strongest brands is Uber. Another one is Apple. Now, how do you connect with these brands and why? Now, I connect with Uber because I really, I've lived in cities before, and there is something to be said for, an app that will call a driver and send them directly to where you are and get you to where you need to go quickly and easily, and even handles the tip if you want to. So I love Uber for that reason. But I also love Lyft. I mean, either one of them I can use. Now, when it comes to brands with computers, I am totally a Mac person. I'm totally in that Apple space. But what a lot of people don't know about me is that I come from a mixed marriage. For years and years and years, I was the PC person because I operated in higher ed, and my husband was the Apple person. So when I retired from higher ed, we decided, or I decided, that I couldn't live with him with him raving about Apple anymore, and I became a convert. And to be honest with you, I've really enjoyed it. So I made the right choice. But think about this. What are the brands that really resonate with you, and what are the ones that don't? When we talked about branding, I said that it was your unique promise of value. And the promise part is all about authenticity. And why is that? Well, authenticity is really rare in this day and age. I mean, if you've been in the United States for the last 5 years, say, there's been a lot of talk about branding and what is authentic and what isn't, and what is truth and what isn't. That's been a hotly debated topic here. What I will tell you is that branding is about the authentic you. And why is that important? Well, for one thing, like I just said, real is rare, what you're seeing here on screen. But the other thing is that inauthentic brands are everywhere in our world these days. And when you think about it, and I love this quote from Anne Morrow Lindbergh, is that the most exhausting thing you can be is inauthentic. And if you'll remember, she was married to the man we called Lucky Lindbergh because he was the first to cross the Atlantic. Although, if you're familiar with his story, Lucky Lindy didn't always hold. But today we're talking about how you are going to create a brand that is totally authentic to you. Why? Because people can spot a fake a mile away. We're so used to seeing, inauthentic brands that authentic really kind of shocks us. It gets our attention. So, how do we create a brand that is totally authentic? Well, we do it in 3 steps. The first is unearthing it or extracting it. We're going to find out your unique promise of success, what it is that you do that is totally unique, totally different, and totally, totally you. Okay, then we're going to look at how you express that brand to your target audience in a way that feels and seems authentic to them. And then finally, we're going to talk about how to exude that brand consistently and constantly. Because the one thing you want to make sure about a brand is, one thing you want to make sure that you do is communicate it, and communicate it consistently. In other words, your brand shows up the same wherever you see it, and constantly. You are constantly putting your brand out there. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits of branding. And these are really, really important because, for one thing, branding leads to self-understanding. Now, remember I told you that I have a background in counseling, and that also brings with it a background in assessment. And one thing I was very, very clear in for the entire time that I was doing this with students and alums in higher education was that all of our assessments were good for self-understanding, but they were missing that feedback piece, because others see us and others know things about us and can verify for us what our brand elements are. So that self-understanding is a really important benefit of branding. Another one is that visibility and presence, because our brand really lives in the hearts and souls of others. So to really understand how others see us, we really need to get their feedback on our brand. It's also important because it differentiates us from others. Our personal brand is what helps us stand out on LinkedIn so that people don't get our brand confused with other people's brands. It also lets us control how people perceive our brand. And it also lets us control, didn't mean to do that. It also lets us control our benefits in terms of wealth management. You know, brands, when you think about it, often we'll pay more for a brand than we will for a commodity. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then a brand also can indicate our achievement. It can be part of that achievement. Our brand can help us reach our career or business goals. And finally, having the right brand leads to fulfillment because you're doing what is perfectly okay and right for you at each and every turn. So we're going to cover 3 steps. Number 1, how do you find out about your brand, right? And that step is extract. So let's look at that for a second. I told you in the beginning that your brand was about being authentic. Your brand is about being the same in every place you go. So the person who shows up at Sunday school is the same person who shows up at the Friday night football game when you're all cheering your kids on, right? So your brand is always authentic. It always delivers the same thing. When people think of you, the same words come to mind. Okay, so it's a promise. It's a promise because you always deliver this thing, whatever it is that you deliver, and you always deliver it in the exact same way. So your brand is, authentic because it reflects what is going on in you internally, your vision for the world, what you want to accomplish. And that may be, in the United States, well, I think in the world actually, beauty contests used to be a really big thing, and they may still be. I just don't keep up with them. But one of the things that you used to always see in beauty contests was towards the end, they would always have interviews with the contestants. And one of those questions was, what is your vision? And almost inevitably, someone would say world peace, which we used to joke about and call it world peas, as in frozen peas. But what that vision meant was, this is what you want to see happen in the world. And it's bigger than you. Your vision is what you really want to see happen in this world. So if peace is what you really want for this world, then your vision is world peace. But perhaps you can't on your own achieve world peace. You're going to need a few people to help you out there. So next we go to your purpose. And your purpose is what you can do personally to see that vision achieved. So not what you can do to necessarily achieve world peace, but what your little part of that may be. Maybe that's helping people understand other cultures, and that's your purpose. Your, your internal perspective also includes your values, those things that are important to you. Your strengths, what you're really, really good at. Your passions, what makes you up. I seem to be going in the wrong direction here. What makes you, what really turns you on? What are your really important interests? And then finally, what are your goals in life? So that's the internal perspective. And our internal perspective has a lot of terms in it, or has a lot of things in it. I'm going to go back here just for a second. So all of these things are part of our internal perspective. All of those things are part of who we see ourselves as. But the other part is how other people see us. Remember I said that when I was doing assessments with students and alums, the piece that was missing was the external perception, getting that feedback on how other people see us, because our brand is already there. It already exists. And, I'm sorry if this is bad news, but our brand is already out there. So we want to hear from other people who know us, what they think of us. Do they find us creative or bold or caring or expert? So we want to have some kind of mechanism where people can give us feedback as to what they see as our brand. And so I do this with my clients in a number of ways, but one of my favorite ways is using the 360 reach. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of description of what that is today, but just know that this is a survey that you can do yourself and then send it out to family, friends, ex-bosses, faculty members, any of those things, any of those people who might know you well enough to have an opinion about what your values are, your strengths, or all those kinds of things. So then you get your internal perspective and the external perspective, and they also can give you a lot of comments that you see. So it gives you, I like this survey because it gives you a lot of really rich data, and you can send it out to your family, friends, etc., and they can comment anonymously, which is really good because that means they're going to feel really comfortable commenting. Now, there's really nothing there that they can comment on that would be negative, so you don't have to feel like you're going to send something out and people are going to see this as a big imposition. They don't, and it only takes about 10 seconds. So this is what I like to use with my clients, but I have other versions that I use too, because some people are not comfortable with doing that and sending out a survey anonymously. Some people would rather kind of look at all those internal perspectives, like their values and their strengths and their interests, and then take those to someone else and get their feedback. What do you think my strongest values are? What would you say my strongest interests are? So that you have that external feedback also. Okay, so that's what do people think about you, and that is your authenticity. So that's one part of your brand, what makes you authentic. That's that promise. The next part is what makes you unique. That's what we call differentiation. So that is what you have in common with other people in your area and what you don't. Let's look at this a little more deeply. Okay, what's the difference between ordering a commodity and a brand? Well, if you're really into, Starbucks as a brand, and their coffee is what you just have to have their coffee, then you can either go to one of their stores and buy bulk coffee, or you can just order ahead and you can zip on through and get that caramel macchiato, part latte, whatever it is. And you can pay a handsome fee for that. Or you can drop by your local coffee store, or go to your supermarket and buy the generic version of that. And both are perfectly good. It's a matter of preference. Some people have to see that brand. They have bought into that brand. And Starbucks as a brand is more than just coffee, isn't it? It's about a cool place to hang out. It's about where it's happening, where the action is. It's got those counters that look out onto the world, and it just seems kind of a cool place to be seen, to see and be seen. Whereas your local coffee shop might be, you might think of that as kind of the old shoe, the neighborhood place where everybody drops by. Kind of the Cheers of the coffee world. If you remember Cheers, it was that that bar that everybody went to and everybody knows your name? Okay, enough of that. I'm not going to sing it for you. So what makes you unique is actually what makes you successful, because your brand is what helps you stand out from all those other people who are operating in the same area that you do. So if you're a brand and there are all these different people, you're going to be the one who stands out because your brand is what they're going to remember. So your brand is what makes you compelling. It's what makes you irresistible to your ideal clients. And so your brand is extremely, extremely important from that perspective. It's what makes you different and what makes you the ideal person to work with your ideal clients, because you're different than other people operating in the same space. But you're not just any different. You're their kind of different. That's what makes it important. So let's look at this a minute. I teach my clients to do something that I call a personal brand statement. And stay tuned, because that's what we're going through in my next webinar. But our personal brand statement takes all of those pieces and parts of our brand and distills them into one statement. So your personal brand statement is your vision, your purpose, your values, your interest, your personality, your strength, your skills, and that reputation that you've put out there. And all of that all gets distilled down through that and gets plopped out into this one single statement that tells who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and what makes you different than all of the other people who do this. So maybe your personal brand is exactly like, Joe Schmo's, except for one thing. Joe Schmo has this really corny way of delivering his stuff, and you have a very dry sense of humor. And maybe your clients are the ones who like somebody who can, mix in a little snide into their comments. Or what was it that I saw one time? I can't remember it right now, but it was like a little bit of droll, a little bit of that dry humor. So it's not just any difference. It's the difference that's their kind of different. Your ideal client's kind of different. They're not buying what you sell because you're the best. They're buying what you sell because you're different. The key is that you're their kind of different. Okay, let's keep going. The second part of knowing your brand is knowing how to express it. So what does that mean? Well, when we talk about communicating your brand, we're talking about count them, 6 things. And that upper part that you're seeing here, visibility, credibility, and likability, that means how visible you are on LinkedIn. Are the right people seeing you? Are they seeing you in the right way? Does what you're communicating seem credible? Does it seem on target? This is how you build yourself as an expert, how you build your reputation as a thought leader. So this is extremely important. You also are going to be building credibility. Excuse me, you're building visibility. That means everybody knows who you are. You're building credibility. That's how credible you are, your expertise. And finally, how likable you are. Some people are going to really like you if you're kind of crotchety and you're a curmudgeon, okay? There's a woman who gives career advice who books herself as that evil HR lady. Now, if I wanted career advice, I would go to her, because I figure she has the inside scoop. But it's also what other people just like, what they like to be around. Okay, the second part is what we call the 3 C's. And this means that you are communicating your brand. Remember, this is a big C, communicating your brand with clarity, consistency, and constancy. Now, what do I mean by that? Clarity is how clear you are on your brand. Is it crystal clear? Are you always communicating the same thing, or is it kind of muddled? Do I not necessarily know exactly where you stand on things? Is it consistent? In other words, is your brand the same thing today as it's going to be tomorrow and the day after that? And finally, is it constant? Meaning, are you promoting your brand constantly on LinkedIn? And that doesn't mean you always have to be running yourself into the ground trying to produce new content. That's part of it, not the running yourself into the ground part, but it's also about sharing content and the right content so that it communicates your brand. So stay tuned because we're covering all of those in the next few weeks. Okay. How do you communicate your content? That's a really, really big part of your brand. And there are all kinds of ways you can do. Now, as you can see in the center of this wheel, I've put thought leadership and point of view, because those are two things that are really, really important in communicating your brand. And by thought leadership, I mean your expertise. You've studied hard and learned hard and been through a lot to get where you are here. Where you are right now, in the here and now. So your thought leadership is that expertise you have. So before you start putting stuff out on LinkedIn, do a computer audit. I guarantee you that on your computer, you have tons of stuff that you could be sharing. You just haven't looked at it that way yet. So look through your computer and see what you've got. People also want you to share a point of view. In other words, what you think about this. Is this a good idea in your mind? Isn't it a good idea in your mind? What would you add to it? That's point of view. So as you're looking through your computer, I want you to look for articles and white papers you put out before, volunteer activity you've done that really helped you get to where you are. I learned a lot of my skills by teaching classes in a women's business center. So that can be part of it. Your blog, a great source. The book you just wrote or are writing, that's very important. Public speaking that you do, internal communications. Maybe you have an internal newsletter that you do. And finally, what you've put out on social media. Okay, and one thing I want you to keep in mind is that we remember in this world, at this state, at this time, we often get to know someone before we actually meet them. Our introduction is online. And so that becomes very important when it comes to promoting your brand because people remember that first impression. Okay, so when we're talking about branded content on social media, and since we're doing this on LinkedIn and talking about branded content, I feel like we're kind of in this space right down here. Now, y'all know that I'm an expert on LinkedIn. I'm dangerous on Facebook. I haven't played with Instagram at all, although I'm planning to do that shortly, and I do very little on Twitter. But what I do concentrate on, I do with this, your branded content on social media is your bio. In other words, your summary, whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn or, Twitter. What does your personal page say? Your headshot. What is your face saying to people? Are you smiling and friendly or do you have a scowl? Okay. Are you an expert? Put out your thought leadership. Your videos, everybody loves video, right? And you're seeing it everywhere. So put out your videos, put out your podcasts, your blog posts and comments, and your articles. Just be everywhere. But wherever you are, constantly ask yourself this question. Am I on brand or off? That's what we call living in the inquiry. Are you on brand or are you off? Ask yourself every time you get ready to post. And lastly, let's talk about video marketing. It is so, so important. And LinkedIn is really going all in on video right now. Just in the last few months, they've added cover videos. You know that circle that has your face in it? Well, on your iPhone now, you can shoot a cover video so that when someone sees your LinkedIn profile on their phone, they're going to see a 30-second introduction where you're going to talk about who you are. You're going to give that personal brand statement that we talked about, and you're going to make a truly authentic connection. There are all kinds of places you can use video on LinkedIn. You can use it in your status update. You can feature it on your LinkedIn page or on your company page. So really, really think seriously about getting into video. And how can you do that? Practice on Zoom. You can set on Zoom where you can just videotape yourself. Just do that. Just record yourself and play it back so you can do lots of practice ones. I practiced for months before I got so amazing at this, right? Listen, if I have the nerve to stick my face out there with this, so do you. Okay, so let's get into the final part. And this is where we talk about exude. And that means making sure that everything in your space, everything that you touch and project reflects the same brand elements. It's constantly the same. So what's in your brand environment? Well, your tools. How do you put it out there? Your multimedia and your technology. Whoop. Went too far there. Your clothing and jewelry, your appearance, your technology, like I said, but this can be your speeches, your presentations, your in-person presentations, your network and how you build that network, and then finally keeping up that communication. All of these are part of your brand environment, and you need to manage them all. But stay tuned, because over the next 3 months, we're going to cover all of this, every last bit. Okay, your brand identity system, and I really want you to think about this. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this today, but we're going to spend bunches of times on this in the future. So that's your color, your font, the images you use, your logo, your tagline, and you thought these were all just parts of your brand. You thought these things were your brand. Your logo is not your brand. Your photo is not your brand. Your brand is in here, and you project it out there, okay? So what goes into your brand? First of all, color. And, part of getting your brand clear is knowing your color. Is it red? Is it powerful, courageous, passionate? That's red. Is it orange, meaning is it strong? Is it about productivity and encouragement and productivity? Is it optimistic? Is it joyful? Is it sunshiny? Is it green? Does it reflect calm? This is a great one that coaches often choose. They often choose green because it projects environmental concerns or youth or rebirth. Blue because it reflects trust and authority and expertise, or even purple. Does it reflect spirituality? Does it reflect the royal we? Whatever it is, make sure that your brand attributes align, and write down here. I want you to take a screenshot of this, because this is a really obnoxious YouTube video about how to choose your brand color. And let me tell you, it is truly obnoxious. It has this really, I'm not even going to go into it. It has this obnoxious song, but it will really help you choose your brand color. So go watch this. All right, now, another thing that you're going to want to focus on is building your brand community. And by this, I mean in your company, in your family, in your friends, in your peers, or external to those, and growing. And one of the things that we do early on with LinkedIn is we decide what that brand community is going to be. Is it your target audience, your ideal clients? Is it possibly partnerships? Is it collaboration? What is it that you're trying to achieve for your brand when you're on LinkedIn? So, one of the things that we're going to talk about in the very near future is how to promote your brand. So today we've talked about personal branding, what your brand is, how to do it in 3 steps, and finally, we're going to look at what you can do from here on out. And I have an action-packed month for you this coming month. So let's just look at it. Your to-do list. Number 1, I want you to get really, really clear on your brand. All right. And I have talked about 2 ways today that you can do, the 360 Reach survey, or you can do a personal branding survey. I do both of those, so you can connect with me to learn more about either one. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. Or you could choose to do something completely different to find it. But one thing that I do use with my clients is the 360 Reach survey, because it looks internally and externally. But you can use anything else too. I use the 360 Reach because it's quick and because it gives really valuable, rich information. But you don't have to. You can do this in person too. And I have both of those ways and can show you either one. I'll be happy to share it. So your second one is to find out what people think about you. So the first part was identifying those things internally. And then, and I said we can do that with the 360 Reach. And the second part is finding out what other people think. And that's still the 360 Reach or a survey or something that you choose to do. Okay, the second thing you're going to do is really look into your computer and see, what kinds of content you could promote on LinkedIn. And on September 2nd, that isn't the clearest video picture I've ever done. But on September 2nd, I'm doing another live promotion or another live video in the group and on YouTube that talks about how to promote your LinkedIn profile and your personal brand on LinkedIn. So go look at that. That's posted on Eventbrite. It's posted on LinkedIn, and go ahead and sign up for that, because in that one, I'm going to show you all the different ways that you can promote your brand on LinkedIn. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, keeping it up. So the next thing I want you to do is plan your communications by signing up for that. Then the following thing I want you to do is to sign up for the 5-day challenge. In the 5-day challenge, I'm going to show you how to find, connect, and engage with 100 of your ideal clients in just 5 days. And we're going to do it at the end of those 5 days. You're going to have identified and sent your first messages to 100 of your ideal clients on LinkedIn. So be sure and sign up for this, because it's really important. Okay, so that's it. If you have questions of me, these are all the different ways you can connect with me. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, let me know you just saw the webinar, and I will not only respond, but I'll send you a little freebie too that you might enjoy. So connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me here on Facebook, send me an email. Any of these ways, I would just love to hear from you, and I will be happy to answer your questions. So right now, what I'm going to do is get rid of this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. Nope, don't want to do that. I want to stop sharing. Oh, wait. Well, I'm not sure if this is sharing or not. I can't see on here. Okay, I don't think it is. Okay. So I'm going to end it right here. Thank you so much for attending. And if you have any questions or comments, oh, wait, hold on. I can look over here just to see if anybody is, nope, I think you're okay. All right. So that's it for now. I will see you on the other side. This is Dumont Owen saying ta-ta for now.